Hi, everyone. I am Anais, Associate Product Manager on the Nuke team. I want to start thanking everyone for joining. We have a great session. We have Steve Wright with us. I'm assuming that everyone here knows who is Steve Wright, but just in case. Steve is an expert on digital compositing and Nuke with over 20 years of experience and many, many credits on feature films. He's also an instructor and has many tutorials and courses for beginners and advanced artists. And you can get more information about his courses on his website, which is fxeacademy.com. He's as well the author of the book Digital Compositing for Film and Video, the one that you may be able to get the chance to get today, which is now on its 4th edition. It's, for what I know, is like a complete rewrite with many new things, scripts, and examples. And I will be asking him a few things about the book and many other questions that I have. But feel free to ask any questions if you want to on the chat, and we can jump to those questions whenever we think that that's a very good question for Steve. Right. So thank you for having us, Steve. Thank you for joining us on this session. And I got many questions, but the one that I'm thinking the most is, how many artists do you think that you have trained over the years? How many compositors?
Well, personally, like in person, somewhere around 1,200. Virtually untold thousands, because I have stuff on lynda.com, hundreds of tutorials on lynda.com that have been viewed by tens of thousands of artists.
That's a lot. What made you decide to switch to Nuke when you were working already as a compositor? What made you decide to change towards Nuke?
Well, I switched to teaching and training when I got laid off from CineSite. They shut down the visual effects at CineSite. Actually, that's an interesting story. They shut down the visual effects, but they kept the digital intermediate pipeline there. So when CineSite Hollywood closed, they laid off every single artist except me. The digital intermediate department wanted to keep me as the go-to guy for image processing problems. Okay, so I hung around another 2 years. Okay, but eventually they got tired of me, and I got laid off from CineSite, and I went into teaching and training full time. Now, I had already published the book, so I was getting some calls and letters from cards from people. So I was teaching Shake, and I've been teaching it for a couple of years. And right around in 2008, I asked myself, what's the next big new thing in compositing? And I said, well, it's 3D compositing. That's really the next big thing. Shake had a little 2.5D thing, but it wasn't a serious 3D environment. So I was at the NAB show in 2008. I marched up to the NAB booth. I grabbed the VP of marketing and I said, I want to teach Nuke. And he said, thank you, thank you. Well, here was the problem in 2008. The Foundry had taken over Nuke. But when they tried to sell it to a studio, the first question the studio asked was, where do I get trained artists? And the only answer was digital domain. Okay, so the Foundry loaded me up with engineers, software, documentation, anything I needed, everything I needed, and to help me, bootstrap up quickly, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's fantastic. So other than having your support as the the first leading Nuke trainer, what do you think it is about Nuke that's led it to becoming the industry standard that it is today?
Well, it's several things. It's not just one thing. One of the pillars of Nuke's wonderfulness is its engine. The 32-bit floating point linear color space engine is just brilliant, and the speed is very fast. Another factor, and again, like I said, it's not one answer, okay? The other factor is the robustness of the package. It can do camera tracking, we can do point tracking, we can do grid work, we can all kinds of tools and features and functions. Another thing is that it is specifically designed for immensely complicated compositing shots. Unlike After Effects, you get two little things going and it all falls down. You can't After Effects is not designed. I'll never forget, I was at the NAB show, I was in the Foundry booth, and the guys that did Gravity, you remember Gravity, that big long opening sequence, all one take?
Beautiful.
They were there, and they brought their Nuke script, 15,000 nodes, and it never crashed. I mean, this is astonishing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. So the stability of the software is critical. I remember when I first got into it, I read the specs. Okay, so it says here, the maximum size image is 64K by 64K. Are you kidding me? Can it really do that? So I sat down and I made myself a 64K by 64K image. I stuck it in Nuke's face and I said, okay, rotate that. And it did. Okay. And another thing that makes it very important is certainly you guys, the Foundry. You guys listen, okay? And your customers say, you know, I need particle systems, you put in particle systems. They say, I need EXR file support, you put in EXR file support. So the responsiveness of the Foundry is another critical component.
Oh, thank you, Steve. It's okay. I love it. Thank you, Steve. That's really so many wonderful things about Nuke. And
gosh.
You would think,
you know, because I traveled around, I'm in different studios, I talk to a lot, you know, I get kind of a God's eye view, and you know, so I hear people, so I get a good view of what's going on.
Yeah, and you would think that 64K is a lot, but you wouldn't believe that we've gotten requests for more.
Okay, that'll be a tough one because that number is undoubtedly baked into the architecture of the software.
Yeah, and it's a lot of pixels, right?
Well,
yeah,
you've got processor issues, and you'd have to fix a lot of different parts of the software to make that work. Wow.
It's a future challenge for sure.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your experience teaching Nuke and what that's like. So one of the companies that you worked with and you know, working with them to adopt Nuke was Pixar. What was it like working with those guys? That
was really a trip. I was actually there twice. They wanted to nuke up. Okay.
I love it. That's great.
So they call me in, and so I go into a conference room, and there's like 40 people around this giant conference table. I'm going, what the hell? I thought I was going to meet Fred, and we were going to talk about Nuke, right? This huge conference room full of guys, and they go around introducing themselves, you know, and who they are and what they are, and describing why they want to nuke up. Okay, it seems that the architecture of Pixar's pipeline was they did everything in camera, okay, which means they rendered everything on the render farm. They didn't do anything in post. And I said, wow, that would take a staggering amount of rendering power. And they just smiled and said, we have a staggering amount of rendering power. So it turned out the backstory was, yes, we like to render in camera, but when the director says, you know, I'd like to see a little more spec. See, what they did was their philosophy was photorealism. Okay, so the reflection on the side of a car was the real reflection. But what was happening was the directors, those darn creative directors, said, well, I want the reflections kicked up a little more. Well, but that's real. I want more reflections. So they began to realize that compositing the shot in Nuke after the render was the way to go for not only creative flexibility, but production time. Because no matter how many blades you got, it still takes time to render those shots. So they could re-render that shot with more reflections in, 12 hours. I can put more reflections in 12 minutes.
Amazing, yeah, that's great. And well, Pixar still use Nuke, still using it, and
no choice.
They're all they're all so lovely. They're really fantastic people there. And did you enjoy that office?
Oh, the lobby there with all the, I went into the Pixar toy store and got all kind of memorabilia. In fact, in my notebook, I carried the stickers, you know, the security stickers from Pixar. They were in my notebook and I kept them there for years as a souvenir.
Oh, that's fantastic. I do the same. My notebooks get full of the stickers from the
Right.
name badge.
Like a steamer trunk with all the stickers on it.
All the places.
Yeah. But no, they're very cool. They're very proud. Okay, they're very proud. Okay. I have a feeling that if you got a job there, it would take a decade before you were considered part of the family. Okay, because they have, you know, so much history, so much going on.
Yeah, they're all, well, it is a legacy, and a lot of smart people there as well.
Yeah, they're brilliant and wonderfully talented people. Okay, not just smart, but very talented.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a great story about Pixar.
Oh.
You know, when you're teaching other, you know, kind of in your broader teaching experience, what are, you know, some of the common questions or the challenges that come up time and again when you see artists learning Nuke?
Well, for beginners learning Nuke, the biggest thing is getting their heads around color. Understanding digital color, color management, color theory, okay, yikes, and this whole linear light space thing. What the heck is that anyway? So, okay. So, great story about the linear light space. When I first got into Nuke, I read the white papers on the linear light space, right? And I went, oh, this is it. This is the answer. Because I was at CineSite for 8 years. And CineSite had developed an all log pipeline. You know, we scanned the film in log space, you know, the Cineon file. All the software worked in log space. Everything was log, 10-bit log. Well, we tried eventually, they started needing to put CGI in with the visual effects shots. And so they hired, you know, CGI guys to write software. They never got it right. They were never able to render a linear image, you know, in Maya and composite it into a log image. They never got it right. So when I read the white paper, I went, that's it. That's why they couldn't get it right. To do it right, you have to be in linear and you have to be in float. And our entire pipeline was 10-bit integer. They were never going to get it, okay? So it's understanding this whole color space, linear light space thing. You know, how is it that 50% gray is code value 0.18? What? That's insane. That can't be right. Okay. The other thing that true beginners have trouble with is the layers and the channels and, you know, all of that. You know, what the heck? Oh, I guess it's time to mow the lawn in the neighborhood here. Sorry about that.
It's always right when you're on a call, isn't it? That's when they decide.
In fact, I called to let them know, hey, I'm going online. Oh, okay, we'll be right over. So, you know, the channels and all of that, and then I guess the other big issue, of course, is keying. That's a perpetual grand topic. Okay, you can never be good enough at keying.
And talking about all the compositing techniques, is there any technique that you enjoy teaching the most in your courses?
Oh, technique I enjoy teaching? Well, yeah, I enjoy, frankly, now that you mention it, I enjoy teaching correcting the green screen correction with green screens. You know, where the background is all wonky and it's dark over in this corner, and then I have a process called screen correction that snaps everything to one solid, clean, perfect level. Watching their eyeballs pop out when that happens is a lot of fun. Okay.
I don't know if we should take any questions. I may go for my next ones, but feel free to.
I think there's one here that's actually related to correcting green screens.
Oh.
And that is tips for how to remove black or white edges in a green screen comp.
Black and white edges in a green screen comp? I don't understand. You shouldn't have any black and white edges in a green screen comp. I don't understand the question. Are you here?
Let's see.
Okay, would you reread the question, please?
That is it. How to remove black or white edges in a green screen comp. Let's see if someone else writes it in again.
Okay. They might be talking about when you key something and comp it, having edges around your character.
Yeah, I think it sounds like edge management here.
Exactly so. That's what I think this means. If they're black edges, I would look to check that you had done a double pre-multiply somewhere. That'll introduce black edges. Okay. If you got light edges, okay, then I would check your despill operation. Okay. See if you're got or get out that edge extend node. Okay, that just came out in Nuke 12. And fill those white edges with RGB values, okay, from the adjacent pixels, okay. I used to do the blur and unpremultiply gag, okay, and tragically I used to teach that, and that was another jaw hanger, okay. You guys took it away from me by putting out the edge extend node. In fact, it's in my book. I have the blur and unpremultiply in the book, this 4th edition, and I think somebody there read that, okay? I think, said, hey, we could do it better. It is better. Your node is better than doing a blur and unpremultiply. Fewer artifacts.
Well, thank you. We had to keep changing it up so there's new things to learn, right?
Always. And new things to teach.
Yes, exactly. So should we, I guess you want to go to the next questions about like tips for artists coming in.
So basically, what do you think there are what resources would you suggest for new artists that want to learn Nuke?
I'm sorry, say what?
Sorry, what resources would you suggest?
Oh, resources.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would recommend a sterling book. Okay. The thing about my book is it doesn't teach Nuke, it teaches compositing. And the problem with too many beginners in compositing is they think, well, if I learn where the buttons and knobs are on the app, I know how to composite. No. There are 3 bodies of knowledge to being a visual effects artist, to being a compositor. 1 is knowing your tools. That's the buttons and knobs on the app. 2, technique. What's the right approach to this problem? Any problem, there you got a half a dozen possible solutions to any given problem. So you want to, pick the right technique to solve that problem. 3rd, art. Compositors are artists, and you have to have some artistic skill and some artistic training. So if you want to get into this, what I would recommend is, first of all, get some art. Photography would be ideal, filmmaking, painting, drawing, anything artsy. And then learn about, like my book, learn about compositing, learn about filmmaking, because we're not really just dealing with an array of pixels and 2D processes. We're making a shot that came from a camera. And you have to understand cameras and camera work, scene composition, blocking, okay, in order to be a really good compositor. So color, understanding color. Okay, so that's the #1 thing I hear when I go to a studio and say, okay, what's wrong with your new hires? They don't know anything about color. Okay.
And
I just happen to have a dazzling webinar on digital color on my website, if you don't mind.
No, that's fantastic. Like, are there, like, when you think about color, like, are there specific things that like where the knowledge is missing? Is it general color management? Is it things like Open Color IO or ACES? Like, what are the specific things that artists should look at learning?
Well, one of the big challenges to an artist is, how do I color correct these 2 things so that they look integrated? Photorealistic color correction. Okay, that's one of the big issues. An astonishing number of artists do not understand the difference between lift, gamma, and gain. Well, you need to know what those operations do on a mathematical level. What are they doing to my pixels? Not just, how it looks on the screen, but you also need to know what visual effect it's going to have. Okay. So, which is why in the 4th edition of my book, I put in a section on the color adjustments. Okay, what do they do mathematically? How do they look visually when you use this one and not that one? Okay, so that's the main thing, is knowing what each color operation. I got some clouds. I want to tweak the clouds, but I don't really want to get the skin tones. How do I do that? Which is that a gain? Is that, you know, an offset? What's the right adjustment for that? So that's kind of what the big issues are, and also the artists don't understand the linear workspace vis-a-vis the display space, sRGB, Rec 709, P3, okay, the relationship, and then what are these log images coming out of my camera? What is that? Why are they doing log? Okay, that's just crazy talk. So that whole color thing is difficult for artists.
That makes sense. Yeah, the fundamentals of, you know, what comes out of the camera and how you're transforming it. But definitely makes sense that you want to learn.
Right.
Should I go again for one of my questions?
Yeah, go for it, Anise.
Okay, I'm actually going to jump into your book. I'm curious to know what is new in the 4th edition of the Positive.
Funny you should mention that. No, okay, this is the 4th edition, and our damn industry keeps evolving, so the publisher keeps beating on me for another book, right? Okay, this is a major rewrite. First of all, I dumped all the stuff on film. There's no more 35mm film in the book. Now, for those who love nostalgia, I did make a PDF file, uploaded it to the publisher's server so that you can actually download a PDF with all that film stuff. The other thing I dumped was all the NTSC video, you know, interlace video, non-square pixels, PAL, gone. But I also uploaded that as a PDF, so you could, you know, if you really want, if somebody hands you some old, actually there's 3 television standards. There's conventional def, standard def, and high def. Okay, and conventional def is the old NTS. That's the new word for the old NTSC stuff. So those are out, boom, in digital cinema cameras, Bayer arrays, debayering. Okay. Also, I put in a whole some other tech. Okay, I talked about ACEs. I talked about OCIO, and also about the light field cinematography. Okay, I have a whole section on light field cinematography. VR, I had a section on VR and how to do visual effects on a VR piece. Okay. But then I also added a whole bunch of workflows that, you know, I'm always thinking of the compositor sitting in a chair staring at a screen going, yikes. Okay. So I have in there workflows for grain management. Here's how you manage your grain, okay? Lens distortion management, okay? Multiple keying techniques, creating the Uber key, multiple spill suppression methodologies, okay? So that's the big issue, is having all these workflows, how to do stuff, okay? Rather than just, well, these are pixels and this is what they do and you can make them brighter and you can blur them, you know, how to do stuff. That's the big issue.
And I heard you talking about your shot kits. What exactly are your shot kits?
Shot kits.
Yes.
Shot kits. Okay, this is an idea I got, and I went and did it. It goes like this. You're a compositor, you're working in a studio, you finished a movie, you want to put on your demo reel. You can't have the elements. The studios won't let you have the plates. Security reasons. All you can do is go grab a DVD or a Blu-ray, burn off your shot, and then maybe put arrows saying, I did this, I did that. But you can't do the befores and afters of a shot breakdown. And I said, That's no fair. You have to have the elements if you want to show an employer, not that you could do it, but that you have done it. So, shot kits are a pack of film plates, all feature film resolution, feature film quality. This is all red stuff. This is all airy stuff, 35mm film. Visual effects shots that you put together and put on your demo reel. Okay, now some of them are skill-based. Here, this is my keying example, or here, this is my demonstrating my ability to key fast motion blur. Okay, I got some action shots in there, you know, so you get a lot of motion blur and flying hair and stuff like that. But I also put in some shots designed to let you show off your creative ability. The sci-fi series and the zombie series, the horror series, you get to make up your horrific makeup, okay? Or you get to design laser blast rays, or you get to design deflector shields to enhance, you know, I give you the green screen, I give you the CGI environment, you blow it up. So there's a chance to show off your creative ability. Okay. Also, I got another one I call key packs. One of the things that about keying, learning green screen keying, it takes practice. You can't read the book, you can't do the tutorial, then sit down and key the shot. You can't. It takes practice. You have to sit down with 100 green screens and a key light node and key one after another until finally you get it. Also, when next time you walk up to a green screen, you'll go, aha, I know exactly how to key that. The other thing is that every keyer has its own unique strengths and weaknesses. You must learn those. So now you can look at a shot and say, okay, this is key light. See that fine hair detail? I'm using key light on this. Or, I'm going to have trouble with the core mat. I better use Primat. It's really good at solid cores. Or do you see that uneven green screen backing there? IBK. This is IBK. Okay. So you've got to learn your keyers, their strengths and their weaknesses, and when to use them. Okay. And then you got to learn to use them in combination. Well, IBK is great for the hair, Primat great for the core, you know, and you start bolting and cutting and pasting things together.
That's it. So the secret to keep.
That is one secret. The other secret number 2 out of 7 is spill suppression. So many of our bad edges come from spill suppression problems. So you need to understand it and have alternatives. Okay. I've actually developed a couple of different spill suppression algorithms. Okay. Nuke has the hue correct node, and that is their tool for spill suppression. And it does a very nice job. But sometimes you need alternatives. The thing to remember about keying and spill suppression, both, they're both a cheat. They are mathematically invalid. Okay? Key light pulling a green screen key is not mathematically correct. It's a cheat that works pretty darn well most of the time. Okay? And spill suppression is also a cheat. You are not actually removing the 3-dimensional light rays that have bounced around, collected, mixed with my hair and on my shirt. You are not. You are simply ripping RGB values off the picture, off the screen. Okay, so they are a cheat that works pretty well most of the time. So you got to have understanding of it and alternatives. You know, ways to work around it.
I'm just trying to read some of the questions that people have been posting.
So that we can, if we go by the most upvoted, so that the top one that we've not answered yet is there a clear ACES workflow tutorial for replacing the Rec 709 workflow?
I don't have one, no. Rec 709 is your video. ACES is, the good news is, first of all, ACES is wonderful. That is the answer. ACES is the answer for visual effects. Like the EXR file was designed by ILM for compositors, okay? I could put my film scan in there, and I could put all my layers and my CGI in there, define the layers, name them. They were made for compositing. Well, ACES is made for our world of visual effects. I'll tell you a great story. I went to a webinar, well, not a webinar, but a session by Charles Poynton. Charles Poynton is a leading color scientist. Color science has always been a hobby of mine. So I went to his seminar, paid $600. There was only about a dozen people in the audience. And the first thing that happened was some kid raised his hand and said, "Oh, Mr. Poynton, why do we need color science?" And Charles just sort of, he was just caught flat-footed by such, a bold question. So I raised my hand, and he said, "Yeah, you, okay." I said, "If you're working in a closed pipeline, video in, video out, film in, film out, you don't need color science. It's all been taken care of for you. The minute you cross between color pipelines, you need color science." And today, I might be compositing a shot that has a background plate shot on a digital cinema camera, a CG element that was rendered in linear. I might have a piece of video that's Rec. 709 to put into a monitor insert shot, and a picture of my mom off the internet. And I got to put them all together in one shot, and I got to convince you that they were all shot together at the same time, under the same lighting, with the same camera and the same lens. Okay? We need color science. ACES is the answer to that. ACES takes Nuke's linear light space to the next level. Okay, Nuke pulls out all of the LUTs that are baked into your Rec. 709, your sRGB, and all of that, backs it out to linearize the image, but it doesn't finish the job. Left into that picture is the footprint of the camera that took the picture. Every camera has a bias. This one puts in too much red, that one drops the blacks too dark, whatever. ACES backs out the camera's attributes from the original captured image to produce a scene-referred light image. Theoretically, those pixels represent the actual light of the actual scene, not as seen by the camera, but the original scene. That's the whole secret of ACES. Then we do all of our work in that space, and then we output it into any number of, the other key to ACES is it has a gigantic workspace, okay? The color range of ACES is far beyond human perception and far beyond any piece of equipment we could build or buy today, okay? So it future-proofs your work if you work in ACES. So what ACES allows you to do is mix and match different inputs from two different cameras on the movie and make them look the same. Okay, so that's the power of ACES.
Mm-hmm. So similarly to ACES, and thinking about wider ranges of color. So here's a question from Rob Bannister around resources, that if there's any that you'd recommend for working with HDR. Now that this is used more.
Well, HDR, high dynamic range addresses brightness ranges. If you're talking about an expanded gamut, that's a different subject, okay? The gamut is, where are your color primaries? How red is your red and how blue is your blue, okay? The CIE chromaticity diagram. Get ready for Rec. 2020, people. Okay, Rec. 2020, are you sitting down? Has a wider gamut than P3, which is your digital cinema color space. So the world is getting ready for that. The TV manufacturers are all tooling up, trying to produce TVs. I can't wait. I cannot wait till I have a Rec. 2020 TV with super blacks. Okay, a dynamic range of 1,000,000 to 1, and expanded primary colors.
Yeah, I agree. I think more than high resolution, HDR is a real impact. Like when you see it, it's a huge difference, right, for a consumer as well as for artists, right, working with images.
Right.
Something that we're working on. a stream of work related to this, and yeah, eventually Rect.
Yeah, but that's expanded gamut. Okay, the range of colors, high dynamic range is extended brightness. Okay, I got a code value of 10 million, the center of the sun.
Let's see. So the next one here, totally different topic. Well, yeah, totally different. And that is about deep compositing.
Workflow tips. Oh dear. Well, deep is set up unique to each pipeline. Okay. Some shops, we do everything deep. Other shops, they'll just pick the money shots. Okay, and just do those in deep. So as far as tips for working in deep, use Nuke.
Indeed, that is the answer. Is there anything for artists that you recommend they think about differently when approaching deep versus a traditional like 2D or 3D kind of data?
I'm sorry. What is the question?
I guess is it when artists start working in deep or learning about how to work in deep, is there anything that you would like advise them to think about differently or to have in their mind, compared to working with 2D or 3D data?
Compared to working flat, what we call flat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, flat versus deep.
Yes.
Well, the lovely thing about deep is you don't have to worry about your layering orders anymore. Okay. The way I explain it to people is I got 2, 3, 4, 5, 17 images in this comp, but each pixel knows exactly where he lives in that world. Okay. So imagine if you're doing a standard flat comp. Okay. I got a flock of birds flying through the branches of a tree. Oh my God, this bird goes behind this limb, but in front of that limb and behind that. Oh, geez, and there's 50 birds and there's 25 limbs. It's a hopeless layering order problem. Okay, but deep solves it natively. Absolutely no work, no concern, because it sorts itself out. Of course, what you'll have to do if the birds were CG rendered deep, and that tree was a live action tree, you're going to have to paint a deep map. Okay. But if it's all CG, you're golden.
I think that I saw another question about what is your best advice for those coming to Nuke from After Effects?
Okay. My best advice is tray tables up, seat backs upright. It is a completely different paradigm. Okay. Nuke is very hard on your head until you get it. Till you get because After Effects is a layer-based compositing system. It was designed to go along with Adobe Photoshop. You were supposed to use After Effects to fly logos around the screen. Okay, that was the original inception. So what they do is they put the timeline in your face, right? The timeline is the center of the universe with this because you're flying stuff around the screen. Okay. Over the years, people keep enhancing it and adding to it and beefing it up, and they keep bolting new things onto it, and it's grown like a weed, but it's still a layer-based system focusing on the timeline. Okay. That's what the other thing about After Effects is, like Photoshop, After Effects hides the technology from the poor little artist. Okay. We don't want to bother your poor little head with all these, alpha channels and masking and stuff and things. So just don't worry about it. We'll just take care of it for you. And do a very nice job until you want to do something that After Effects doesn't do. Then you're trying to outsmart After Effects' native behaviors. You can get into great trouble. Okay? With Nuke. Nuke is naked. Nuke puts all the tools on the table. You have to put them together to make something. I remember I was doing fusion transition training for a studio in Mumbai. They were all going from Fusion to Nuke. And they said, well, in Fusion, I've got a fog node. I can just make fog. Here, watch this. Fog. Can you do that in Nuke? Well, no, but give me a minute. 5 nodes later, I had fog. Okay? Cubic fog, volumetric fog. Okay? So Nuke expects you to know mathematics. I'm scaring people. Nuke expects you to understand mathematics, compositing, art, color, okay? Nuke expects more of the artist than After Effects, who tries to hide it from you. So Nuke, what's not, with After Effects, it's the timeline that's in your face. With Nuke, it's the data flow that's in your face, okay? You look at a Nuke script and you're looking at a schematic diagram for the flow of the data. It's going to come in here, it's going to get blurred, it'll go over there, it'll get color corrected, come down here, it'll be joined with that, and you get a schematic of the logic of the shot. And that is the overarching concept behind Nuke. Okay, it puts the Nuke is, in the world of computer science, Nuke is what we would call data flow programming. It's all about the data moving from here to there. Okay, so the After Effects artist, to close on the question, is to be ready for a completely different paradigm. Okay, and it'll take a little while for you to get your head around Nuke think. Okay.
I was just gonna ask about the coronavirus. Sorry for everyone for bringing the topic.
I'm not sick. I'm not. I don't. Keep back from it. Yes.
Do you see any long-term changes?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. The coronavirus kind of forced the industry to suddenly snap to a virtual model. Now, there was a fair amount, a little bit of that before, but Corona forced it on the industry. Okay, and what's going to happen is, after Corona's gone, some of that is going to stick. We're going to stay more virtual, which is great news for artists, because now you could be a man in a machine at home. I don't have to move to Madrid or New Zealand, or God help me, Montreal. No, I love Montreal, it's a great city. But okay, I mean, I remember years ago, I was talking to an agent. Who is that guy, the famous agent? He's an agent for visual effects compositors. And he said, what you need is a resume and a visa. Okay, if you want to work in the industry now. So that is becoming less true now, because some of this remote, it has forced the company to buy the equipment, develop the workflows, figure out the problems, come up with solutions, solve the security issues. Okay, force them to do that. And now, once the Corona's gone, they're going to say, well, do we really need 75 guys sitting in this room with air conditioning and you know, a snack room and restrooms and all that jazz? Maybe we could cut it down to 10 and have 40 virtual artists. So it also, this whole virtual thing and the man in the machine, you know, you're working at home, works very well with the business model of visual effects, and that is this. I had my own studio for 10 years in Hollywood, and the problem is uneven workflow, okay? You get a big project, you're going like gangbusters, and the project finishes, the movie's done. I don't want to lay these people off, okay? So now you've got this big fixed overhead and no income. So it's a terrible, terrible scenario. Well, with this, you know, people are working at home. When the project's over, it's over, okay? Now maybe there's another gig, maybe they can go work for another studio, but they don't have to go rent an apartment in another city. That's the key. It's also more cost-effective and efficient if the studio manages it correctly. Less fixed overhead.
Do you see any trends in the industry? Like
no trends, no. Well, working remotely, of course, is a big trend. Okay.
Okay.
I remember, I've been in this industry for a very long time. Okay. I remember sitting in the SIGGRAPH watching, oh my God, rigid body deformations. Wow. Okay. I worked at Robert Abel and Associates. Probably nobody out there even knows who that is anymore. They developed the first ray tracing software. This was in the days when you wrote the software to do the commercial. Okay. So I've been in the industry at a very early stage, and what it's been is this staggeringly rapid evolution, everything changing and new features and new functionality. I remember AT&T actually put out a real-time ray tracing box that you could purchase, okay? So that was a big story back then. But the recent trends today are for ACEs. A lot of studios are moving to ACEs, okay? So I recommend all the folks out there become ACEs happy, okay? Come up to speed with OCIO. Again, we're doing color again, right? I don't know that deep compositing is going to be a huge, okay, so I mean, the Transformers movies, the King Kongs, sure. But, you know, for just your generic, especially for television, okay, broadcast is doing a hell of a lot of neat stuff, okay? And they haven't got the schedule or the resources to do a lot of deep. They can do some deep, okay? But for the most part, broadcast television is on a very tight schedule. They have to work faster. Their standards or specs are not as high as a feature film, okay? So that's another area where being fast, I teach my students, speed is life in the world of visual effects. You have to be a quick compositor. You're working, the job is shutting down. Management is trying to figure, who are we going to keep, who's going to go? Fred does twice as many jobs as Ralph in the same amount of time. We're going to keep Fred. Okay, sorry, Ralph. Okay. So productivity is a critical issue. So the trends are towards being very productive, being comfortable with ACEs, being able to do photorealistic color correction without bothering the comp super, okay?
You were just mentioning that you have been like in the industry for quite some time. Where do you see the compositing being? Like, where do you see this movement like changing in 10 years? Where do you see compositing?
Wow, I see it getting even more powerful. I'll never forget one time I was at a post-mortem on Night at the Museum 3. Okay, the producers and the directors and the VFX supervisor, they were telling him how we did Night at the Museum 3. I worked on Night at the Museum 2, so I was interested in their story. So the thing that struck me was what the VFX super said was, we rendered our CG lighting passes we didn't fuss over them. You know, oh, let's re-render the specular layer. You know, oh, let's redo the ambient. They just blasted them out and handed it to the compers. And the compers gave it the final look. That's the punchline. That is a more efficient pipeline, okay? Rendering is expensive. Okay, re-rendering this plate could take hours, if not days. But the composite, I hate comper. I don't want comper anymore. I'm a compositor, okay? The compositor can dial up that specular pass and recomposite the shot and be showing it to you in 15 minutes, not 15 hours, okay? So the trend, the overarching trend, as I see off into the distance, is more and more stuff being moved from 3D into 2D. Okay.
Great. I think we got like a few minutes left, so I'm going to jump with actually Nuke. Do you have any favorite feature on Nuke 12?
Oh my goodness, that's like asking a child what his favorite Christmas present was. Um, well, I got to tell you, I love the grid warp tracker. I love that thing. That is so cool, and it's quick and easy to use. But I think the most useful, and I found more damn uses for that edge extend thing. I use it for much more than just fixing the edges of a bum key. Okay, I've got all kinds of nifty uses for that guy. So I guess I have to say my favorite new toy is the edge extension node.
Yes, nice. That's a nice one. So, okay, you're in front of two people that work at Nuke, so it's your chance to. Is there any feature that you would like to see in Nuke in the future?
Well, remember, I teach artists, where the studio is going to say, hey, we want to add these new things, okay, to give me more capability, more speed. I think the one change I would love to see in Nuke is, this sounds really petty, the playhead is sitting on frame 1. And I tell it to jump to the first, oh, you've heard this. You know about this.
I know where this is going.
Frame.
Let you go.
All right, so jump forward, 10 frames, skip forward. You have to move it off of frame 1 before it'll do any of that. And that vexes me mightily. That distresses me.
Taking notes, not the first time that we have
I bet she started laughing when I brought it up. You've heard this before. But the big studios are gonna give you the new features they want to see,
Yeah.
My needs are small.
Christy, do we have time for any last question on the chat?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one that's interesting that's tied a bit into this future trends bit, and that is, what is your view on AI, machine learning, and VFX?
Okay, artificial intelligence. Okay, it's overrated for visual effects. Okay, I don't think we have anything to worry about for a long time. They want to use AI for rotoscoping. They want to use AI for keying. Okay. The problem is that the equation is too complex. It takes judgment. Okay. You got a motion blur. What's the rotoscope? What is the exact? It takes judgment. It takes experience. Okay. I know AI can learn and AI can get experience, but I think it'll be a long time before AI will be a significant contributor to visual effects. I love AI, don't get me wrong. And it has marvelous applications in many situations. It's just, well, I don't see it for this for a long time.
Great. There's another one here that's kind of also related to the future. And I'm also personally interested to know what you think about this one. And that is about virtual production. I mean, and is that going to change or reduce the work of compositors?
Well, you mean, that's what we were talking about earlier, was spreading the shop out. And no, it doesn't. It moves it around, but it doesn't reduce the amount of work for compositors. Okay. That's the man in a machine thing I was talking about.
Yes.
You now have, your big bad tower and your Nuke license. You are a one-man production studio that you can sit at home and make a good living without moving to Montreal. Not to pick on Montreal. Okay. So I see that as a really good future for a lot of artists moving into this remote production scenario.
Yeah, just with your, here's another one, specific one, back to artist workflow.
Yes.
Workarounds for the channel limit.
You mean 1,024 channels is not enough? I get to do a job. Really? Is that the issue? Is 1,024 channels is not enough? Oh dear.
Yeah, well, I think it's this case of like live groups and things where you have many things in the script, if I interpret this correctly. So where you add up the channel count and you run out.
Wow, no, I don't have any clever workarounds for that. That sounds outrageous and awful.
Smarter channel management is the workaround, I think.
Well, the one thing I have noticed, the channel delete node doesn't really delete the channel. It's still there. Okay. So it makes it difficult to repurpose things. Okay. So maybe increasing the efficacy and flexibility of the channel create and delete. So you could reallocate. You can't change the 1023 channels, because that is endemic to the entire architecture of Nuke. You would have to go into every single nook and cranny of Nuke and rewrite that to make that 2048 channels. Okay, it would be a colossal architectural rewrite. So maybe you could put in some tools to allow.
Yeah, we could make it unlimited. That's definitely possible.
Floating
but it doesn't
channels?
make it easier to manage.
You floating point channels?
The limit can go away.
Wow. But that would be.
Yeah, it doesn't change the challenge of managing it or how you work with that many channels in scripts, right? Which just becomes messy and hard, and it impacts performance at a point.
The complexity becomes overwhelming. In fact, you should cut down on the number of channels so that people will be more disciplined. Okay, they're wasting channels out there. I just know. Okay.
Well, we did. I think it was, which release was it? I think 11.3. We added the counter for channels, and you can have a warning, so you can have better self-management of your channels if you're getting close to the limit, or if you decide in your pipeline, we don't want anyone to work with more than so many channels. Yeah,
but again, to go to unlimited channels or to double from 1023 to 2047 would be a huge architectural rewrite of the software. It would be monstrous.
We got one question from Jorge, which is, do you think tools like Fusion can become an edge rival to Nuke in near future?
Fusion become a rival? No, I don't. And here's why. I know Blackmagic essentially gives it away for free. And Fusion is getting better. Fusion is good. Fusion is great. And it's getting better. But there is another issue. And that is the installed base throughout all the visual effects studios around the world. They have wrapped themselves around Nuke. They have written custom software. They have designed the pipeline for Nuke. They got 100 apps that they plug into Nuke, and to rip that out and go to Fusion would be a colossal rewrite of the whole architecture of the pipeline of the shop. Okay, so that was years ago. I wrote an article on Rhythm and Hues. You remember Rhythm and Hues?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Their forte was doing animal stuff, and they had written a whole bunch of custom software, and I wrote an article saying it would be the death of them because the custom software, it's not expandable. It's not you can have an engineering team constantly writing, but you need a big team. At Robert Abels, we had 25 software engineers and 30 artists. Okay, it is a colossal overhead to write your own software. So I wrote an article saying essentially that they were dead meat because their software, if they can't drop in Nuke or Fusion or Shake, in those days it would have been Shake, and build on that, because they were baked, it was baked into their entire pipeline. You don't just rip out the heart and drop in a new one. Okay, the whole infrastructure surrounding the pipeline is hooked into Nuke.
Oh, I see one that actually we didn't cover. What would you say about Python learning for Nuke?
Do it. I mean, if it's a way for an intermediate to become an advanced. It's a way for an advanced to be retained at the next job cycle. not for junior people, okay? But Python is, being a Python scripter is a really great, very useful tool for the studio. Probably more important for big shops, okay, than small shops. In small shops, you have to wear many hats. You know, you get a job at a small shop, you're going to do some compositing, you might do a little 3D, you might do some color stuff, you know, color correction. In the big shop, my favorite, in the big studio, you have the hair guy, right? All he does is hair, okay? That's how specialized it has gotten, but that's in the big studios. But Python is a wonderful tool. You can take Nuke and make it jump up on the table and dance. If you're a Python scripter, people, in fact, I've always thought if I ever get tired of this trend, I love programming, okay? I was a big Unix programmer when I had my studio, and I really enjoy programming. And I always thought if I ever give up the training thing, I'll become a Python coder and write Nuke Python stuff for people and make a living that way, okay? Because I love to code. But it's not something appropriate for the junior, but for an intermediate who wants to become an advanced, or for an advanced that wants to become really senior, adding Python would be an excellent skill adjunct.
Okay. I think that we have answered like many questions. Is there anything that we didn't cover? Anything that... Okay, so I think that we can wrap up.
Can I go now?
Well, I mean, it's been really fantastic having you on, Steve.
Well, thank you.
It's been a lovely chat. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And take care.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.